Hello everybody and welcome back to more political chatter. In this video we will be talking about my first election prediction between former President Donald Trump, Congressman Dean Phillips, and Independent Robert F. Kennedy Jr. So, Dean Phillips, a congressman, a U.S. representative from the state of Minnesota, announced on Friday. This video took me a little bit. I've been meaning to do it for a few days now. But he announced that he would be running in the Democratic primary for U.S. president. Now, this came as a shock to many, since Congresspeople usually almost never do they launch their own presidential bids against their party's president. Well, the last time that happened was in 1980, when Senator Ted Kennedy challenged Jimmy Carter for the Democratic nomination. So it's been a while. It's uncommon. But Dean Phillips is running in this Democratic primary, so this is a hypothetical election, a hypothetical matchup. If Dean Phillips won the Democratic primary, Dean Phillips somehow came out on top, beat Joe Biden in the primaries, was able to secure enough delegates, maybe got the Marianne endorsement or whatever, and then he's the nominee. And then, of course, Donald Trump is the Republican nominee. I'm not changing that, obviously. And then, and we have to include Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He is a candidate. He would be a candidate even if Dean Phillips wins. So we do have to include him in these election analysis, even though it's a very hypothetical matchup where it's, if Dean Phillips wins the nomination. With that being said, let's get into this video. Starting with safe Democratic states, I would characterize Washington, Hawaii, Washington, D.C., Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, Connecticut, New York, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont. Those would all be safe. And I just want to say now, I think that Dean Phillips is an electorally stronger candidate than Joe Biden. RFK Jr. might change this, might switch it all up a little bit. But I will say that I think that Dean Phillips is a stronger candidate than Joe Biden. Whoops, California too. If we were considering that he has won the Democratic nomination in this scenario, that means his name is now recognized. People know more who he is. Now moving on to safe Republican states. Idaho, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska at large, Nebraska's first, Nebraska's third, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, West Virginia, Mississippi, Alabama. And yeah, that's it. So that puts Dean Phillips at 153, Donald Trump at 97, RFK Jr. at 0. Moving on to likely Democratic states. Oregon, Maine's first, and Colorado. 3 states where they're very Democratic, very close to being safe. However, Kennedy definitely takes some progressive votes from all 3 of these states, these very anti-establishment votes. So that's why I have them likely instead of safe. I think that Phillips would do very well in New Mexico, a state like New Mexico. That would be likely. And then very strong state for him, almost safe, is of course his home state from Minnesota for obvious reasons. He is from this state. And whatever. But it won't quite be safe because, I don't know, Kennedy would take more Democratic votes here than Republicans, I think. And of course Illinois. And I do want to say that that honestly, if Dean Phillips were to win the Democratic nomination, I honestly don't feel that the Biden voters would have that much of a grudge against him for beating Biden in the primary. Just, saying that the stakes would be very high, electing Donald Trump again, and they would realize that. And I honestly think that if Dean Phillips did somehow beat him fair and square in the primary, then Biden would endorse Phillips in the general election. So Dean Phillips, does have like an appeal just to normal people. Like the suburbs, parents mostly, just because he is a very normal guy, a very competent guy. Not like we've seen, like the last time we saw that was like Obama in 2012, so it's been a while. So I think that he would excite some people. So with that being said, I mean, well, I guess this doesn't really apply. I was looking more at the Rust Belt, like Pennsylvania stuff, but those can't be likely. I would put New Hampshire definitely as a Dean Phillips state. I think that he would do very well there. He's campaigning there a lot right now for the Democratic primary. Um, and then Virginia, I think that Kennedy would take more votes away from Trump, honestly. I feel like the rural Virginia, more coal country, would honestly really like RFK Jr. So they'd vote for, a lot of Republicans would vote for Kennedy. Um, Moving on, that's going to be it. Now let's move on to likely Republican states. So Montana and Kansas. I think that, first of all, I think that Dean Phillips would do honestly pretty well in both of these states, very independent-minded voters. But more so Kennedy, RFK Jr. definitely polling a lot of Republican votes in both of these states. Very, again, independent-minded. Heading down to South Carolina, no reason it should really be that close. That's likely for Trump. Let's see. Sorry. Yeah. I mean, I don't even know. Texas. I mean, yeah, I guess not. Utah, of course. Sorry. But Utah is close just because of Kennedy in the race. That's that Kennedy effect there. And honestly, neither Dean Phillips or RFK Jr., even though Dean Phillips comes right next door from Minnesota, Iowa will not be close. That will be a likely state for Donald Trump. And that will be it for likely Republican states. Now let's move on to lean Democratic states. Dean Phillips is at 223. Donald Trump at 128. Big lead for Dean Phillips. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., 0. Moving on to lean Democratic states. Let's see. I mean, I'd put Nebraska's second as lean. I mean, Kennedy would probably take some votes away from Phillips more. But that's a lean Phillips state. Lots of suburbs where Dean Phillips would do well, I'd think. Arizona and Nevada are very tough because Kennedy pulls up a good amount of the vote, especially from Arizona. So he really shakes things up. But I would, I guess, yeah, I won't do that actually. Never mind. But Texas, no, of course not. Okay, so Florida's very tough because Kennedy is going to do very well in Florida. And I did have Biden winning Florida, honestly, by a very slim margin. But with Dean Phillips, less known, I don't know. So definitely not lean Democratic. But looking at the Rust Belt, I think that Kennedy pulls more votes away from Trump than Phillips, considering Biden won the blue ball, all of it, in 2020. I would say that Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania are all lean for Dean Phillips, and that puts him at 268 electoral votes. I think that the suburbs will pull him over, and again, Kennedy. More so Kennedy will pull him over, but Dean Phillips will do very well in the suburbs, and I think it would allow him to win. I would have to say Maine at large is probably Dean Phillips plus a point. It's going to be very tough. I mean, considering that this is a three-way race between Trump, Dean Phillips, and Kennedy. Because I do have Kennedy winning Maine's 2nd district. I think he will win when it's Biden, Trump, Kennedy in the general election. I do think that he will win Maine's 2nd, considering that it has ranked choice voting, especially when you consider that. I think that Kennedy is on track to win Maine's 2nd, because in that 2nd district, you'll have many Republicans switching to Kennedy. But if they don't switch to Kennedy, then they're definitely ranking him number 2. And then Democrats in Maine's 2nd, who don't switch, they'll mostly stay. with the Democratic nominee. But they'll also rank Kennedy number 2 over Trump, definitely. Then you have a very large block of independents who are going to rank Kennedy as number 1. So I think that in Maine second, Kennedy is on track to win right there as of now. Yeah, that's going to be it for lean Democratic states and lean Kennedy states. Moving on to lean Donald Trump states. Texas will shift a little bit to the left because I think that Dean Phillips will do kind of strong in Texas, considering that he will be running more of a moderate campaign than Biden. Definitely think that more common sense, common ground, whatever. Kennedy would probably take more away from Trump than Phillips too. I mean, looking at North Carolina, Georgia, I I guess Kennedy will take more away from Trump than Dean Phillips, but I honestly don't even really know. I would say that North Carolina is leaning Republican, and then Georgia I don't think is, but Ohio is leaning Republican, I believe. Um, Kennedy steals a lot of the vote here, and Dean Phillips would do all right, but Kennedy lots of rural Trump voters, blue collar workers who would switch over to Kennedy. And that will be it for lean Republican states. So Dean Phillips has won this election with 270 electoral votes to Donald Trump's 201. RFK Jr.'s 1. Now moving on to tilt Democratic states. Arizona is Arizona I would give to Dean Phillips. Again, he's going to run more of a moderate, common ground type campaign, unity campaign against Trump. I think that will be very successful in a lot of the states, like the blue wall, like Arizona. I think he would be able to pull through. And I don't really know who Kennedy steals from more, so I would have to put Dean Phillips as the winner in Arizona. In Nevada, I would think that Kennedy takes more away from Trump than Phillips. I definitely think that the Democratic voters here are a bit more partisan than the Republican ones. So I would also put Nevada as a very close tilt win for Dean Phillips. Very, very close, though. Again, Dean Phillips has already won. But I think that Trump wins Florida by a tilt margin. Kennedy just takes so much of the vote away from here. This will be close in 2024. Kennedy makes this very close because all of Kennedy's vote is coming from Donald Trump. All of it. 95% of it. Well, not 90. I mean, 75% of it, realistically, is coming from Donald Trump. So that makes this very, very close. And plus, Kennedy will do very well in Florida, making it very dramatic effect. In Georgia, I would think that Kennedy pulls lots of Democratic votes. And Dean Phillips just doesn't have any appeal in Georgia either, in the South at all, really. So I'd have to give Georgia to Trump. And then Alaska, I will play it safe, but they also have ranked choice voting. So Kennedy will do very well here, places second, but I will still give it to Trump. So Dean Phillips wins with 287 electoral votes, Donald Trump at 250, RFK Jr. at 1. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you enjoyed, or if you didn't enjoy, still subscribe. And I'll see you all later.